This is Lewis Hart for Boxing Social in association with Empire. Why?
You're taking ages to set up and you look all jittery.
No, I'm not all jittery, mate. I don't know why I was taking so long, but I am finally ready to be joined with Adam Booth. We're here in Sunderland in the Beacon of Light for another big night for Josh Kelly. How's things? How are we feeling?
Good, just enjoying every day as it comes. There's a simple answer for you.
Absolutely, I appreciate it. I hope it's not too many simple answers, mate. But as I said, another homecoming for Josh Kelly, another big fight to close the year. How sort of would you view his progression in 2023?
He's matured into his prime, and he's now in his prime and ready for whatever gets put in front of him. It was going to be Rourke Knapp. He got injured, and we needed someone that was going to keep him switched on, and that's when Ramirez stepped up and took the fight.
And when you look at Josh, sort of as he said, he had a 16-week camp for an opponent, and for it to have changed sort of so close out, how as a camp do you sort of mentally, physically sort of adapt your camp for someone different, and how do you sort of deal with all those things?
If only the flicker only lasted about an hour and a half, and then we were fine. You obviously have that disappointment when you have one man focus in your head, but then Josh's fighting style was all about Josh anyway, and it didn't make a jot of difference really.
And when you look at Josh now, where you look at the Williamson fight this time last year, it was a statement that was provided by Josh. When people weren't always sort of backing him to win that fight, I think sort of the 50-50 fight, and for him to prove against Williamson that he didn't even there was complete levels apart to push on from that fight now and provide a statement at that level to kick on. And how sort of happy have you been with his progression when he's been kicking on?
So there's been a hell of a lot of progression in the last 12 months, physically, technically, mentally and emotionally, to the point that we're at this situation now where it's like we're enjoying each day. And a 16-week training camp completely uninterrupted by injury or illness, which is so rare, especially at this time of year, that as his coach, I'm standing here saying I'm confident now. Whoever you put in front of him, I'm pretty sure he has an answer for.
And you mentioned there about the 16-week training camp. I do want to mention on that and touch on that, because I don't know, it might be different with different fighters that you've dealt with, but having a 16-week training camp and having such a long training camp, as a coach, how do you deal with that to sort of when you look at someone's peaks, when you want to taper off and things like that?
You periodize and you establish different peaks throughout the period that you're working. And for us, that was 16 weeks, and that's what we did. And I'm confident to say I think we nailed it, and the last peak is now.
And you look at Josh now. There's a lot. Obviously, the Super-Welterweight Division is always moving about. As we see Tim Tszyu get elevated to a WBO champion after Charlo vacated. Charlo also vacating the IBF, which Josh has a high ranking in. Do you feel like that when the belts may end up getting fragmented, this is a good position now for Josh to scatter and be pushed into a world title picture?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a question for him to be dealing with, and I'll be pushing him after Saturday, not before Saturday, because like we said, we take every day, every bit as it comes along, and so Saturday night he's got Ramirez in front of him.
And you mentioned there about Josh developing sort of mentally, emotionally, and as a fighter. How important is that whole side that isn't about all the physical training that you do? There's so much other stuff that goes into it, where his mindset, how he can sort of apply his trade and sort of train his mind in a sense.
Well, he's matured as a man, and he's gone through some difficult times, come through it the other side in his prime as a better fella than he went into it, in every sense, whether that's as a fighter, a boxer or a man. And so that is only going to benefit him in everything that he does in life, whether that's when the bell rings or whether that's on the golf course. It's helping him in everything.
And as a coach, you've seen so many different people come through your doors. You've had so many sort of different characters, and the way that they take in information may be different from the others. How do you deal with that on a mental side, trying to connect with someone on a mental side as a coach, and when it comes to listening and how they are emotional?
I mean, you can't necessarily connect with everyone, and what works for one absolutely doesn't work for another, or what works for one does work for another, technically. And it's like, I'm not a one-tool one-fits-all type of coach. I try and be malleable in how I approach it to try and get the best out of the individual rather than making them conform to my coaching philosophy, which is satisfying but also challenging and stressful sometimes, but I guess it's just how I do it.
And when it comes to styles as well, where you have someone like Josh, where he may be different to someone like you've trained before, where it comes to like David Hay and Mick Conlan and people like that, how do you feel like you develop as a coach when it comes to different styles? Do you feel like it's good to have that versatility where no matter what style it is, you're very suited to whatever they bring?
I wouldn't say I'm suited to every style. And every fighter that I work with, I learn something from them. I have to, you know. And so when something works for one that may or may not work for another, I've got different tools in my box that I can try. I have my coaching philosophy: be hard to hit and hit hard. That's my basic philosophy. And then whether it's southpaw, orthodox, forward, back foot, I just adapt that.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think it matters.
Like what I'm saying, like important.
In combat sport, it's important not to get hit. So to say be hard to hit is not a bad strapline. To hit hard is a good element because you need to get someone's respect and be able to establish control with your hands as well as everything else. And then each individual style or rhythm or psychology of a fighter, you look at, all right, well, what's the best defensive techniques and strategies and rhythms for this fella? What's the best defensive positions for him to go into, long range, short range? That's where it becomes a myriad of options where what works for one doesn't work for another.
And as a coach, is there an importance for yourself where no matter what you see and how experienced that you are, you're actually there's still so much that you can actually learn, and when you deal with different types of fighters that come in, there's still that importance that you still are learning?
The worst thing can be success, because success can create a bit of complacency where you start to believe you think you know it all, and that's a dangerous space for, I think, for a coach to be in, because life evolves and humans evolve and sport evolves and things change. Look at the fights back in the 80s at the highest level, they don't look like the fights at the highest level nowadays. So the sport has changed and the coaching has to change alongside that. So I try and always question what I do, keep my mind open, forget what I know and focus on what I think I don't know.
You mentioned there about being comfortable. It's sometimes often that's talked about with fighters after they get big wins, they can easily get comfortable. Do you feel like there's definitely times where coaches could be guilty of being too comfortable when they have sort of certain amounts of success and there's no place to adapt or change?
Absolutely. Success and complacency can run alongside each other, and when you add in ego and you put ego alongside success, it's very easy to see how complacency and arrogance can set in whatever you do, whether it's a coach or an athlete or whatever. And so I try and check myself, and I try and surround myself with people that will check me if I don't check myself.
And talking about your stable there, recently sort of you do have quite a small stable of small sort of stable of fighters. How have you sort of found that? And do you feel like you prefer having a small stable where you see coaches who have plenty of all different types of fighters?
Yeah, I mean, my satisfaction and success as a coach has always come in sort of very isolated scenarios. It's how I function best and it's what I prefer. And so I'm fortunate enough to have that now.
So, and obviously talking about your stable, someone that did depart ways and you sort of mutual depart was Mick Conlan. He did suffer a defeat against Gill. I just wonder what your sort of thoughts were with that performance from Mick.
Well, I didn't want to see him lose. It was a shame that he lost that fight. I thought that Jordan was going to give him something, because Jordan sparred with Mick a few years ago, and for Jordan to take the fight, he knew that he was in a difficult fight. He prepared himself for a difficult fight, and he put in, if I'm honest, I thought Jordan put in the performance of his lifestyle and that's of his life, sorry, and I think that's what got him the win.
When you look at Mick now, obviously that defeat to Jordan Gill has come with critics and what he should do next in his career. speaking from a former coach, what would you like Mick to do next for his career?
It's entirely up to him, whether I was his coach or not his coach. It's always the fighter's choice. It's his life, and he has to be the one that makes that decision.
Just as we close this interview off, on a personal level for yourself as a coach, how have you looked at 2023, and how do you sort of look to push forward on 2024?
You need to ask me after Saturday, because I'm not in a
I'm
not in a reflective.
That's fine. That's fine.
I'll be reflective after Saturday when I can relax my shoulders and just enjoy a bit of a holiday time.
Absolutely, I will ask that question after Saturday, hopefully after a Josh Kelly win. Adam, just want to say thank you for taking time to speak to me. I know it took a while for me to get ready, but I do appreciate it, mate, and yeah, all the best for Saturday night, mate. Thank you, top man.